Hey everybody, it is me, Angel Benton, and it's time for another edition of Angel Sudsy Recap, where we delve into the world of daytime television and do a few reality shows on the side. And one of those reality shows that we're talking about is Below Deck Med. Okay, so lots to talk about this week. So the first thing I want to discuss is this love triangle between Adam and Wes and Malia. So, to kind of give you guys a little background, you got Wes, who's the bosun, right? He's in charge of all the deckhand, and Malia's a deckhand. So he's never had like a chick on his crew, let alone a chick that was gorgeous that he's attracted to, that he has everything in common with. So he has this personal rule that I'm not going to be getting involved with someone that works for me. But then one night when they were out, he ends up kissing her. Then he comes back in the boat and he's talking to Bugs. And Bugs is like, I really think you should go for it. It doesn't look like it's going to sour anytime soon. She was really into you. I think you should totally go for it, right? Meanwhile, while Bugsy and Wes are talking at the exact same time, Malia's off kissing Adam. Now, granted, Adam was a little bit aggressive. You know, Adam was the one who came in with something to prove. Like, I'm not going to let this bitch take my girl, right? So he moved in, and and then he starts sucking face with Malia. And she leaves him, and she's got makeup all, like, lipstick all over her face. And who does she run into? Lauren, Bobby, and Max. And they were like, what the hell is going on? You look like the Joker from Batman. Which, I'm sorry, when Maxie said that, I gotta say, Maxie is actually quite hilarious. His sense of humor is pretty wicked, and I enjoy it a lot. I've gotta say. Okay, so having said that, Lauren then goes and tells Hannah. And Malia starts coming for them. And Hannah is a little bit intoxicated, so she doesn't really care. She's like, whatever, and then she goes to bed. But Lauren and Malia stay, and they have this drag-down fight. And this is the one thing I hate about those knockdown, drag-out fights, is that they never hardly ever happen when the parties are sober, right? They almost always happen when someone's drunk. And that is, I've never fought with anyone when I've been drunk. Granted, I've only been drinking for like 3 years, so I haven't been drinking that long. But when I've gotten drunk, I've gotten sleepy or weepy. That is great. Those are my two dwarf names, Sleepy and Weepy. Oh, God. It's funny because it's true. But I never get belligerent. Like these people, they only get belligerent when they're drinking. So I don't know if Bravo makes them drink or what, but it's a little much because of course the next morning they're like, I'm sorry, blah, blah, blah. They hugged it out. But, okay, so then the next day they had well, first of all, okay, so the charter guests this week. They're the Oklahoma guests that they had last year on Below Deck Med. Now, in last year's episode, because that was before I started doing the Sudsy recaps, in last year's episode that they were on, that was when Danny was sitting there watching them have a threesome in the hot tub, and he's like, yeah, okay, I'm going to bed, good night. Excuse me. So even though there wasn't any actual, like, penetration, you know, it was still kind of awkward, so he was like, yeah, I'm out of here, bye. But anyways, moving on. So, first of all, they said that they like spending time with the deck crew. They actually said that in their preference sheet. I love that. I think that's great. Secondly, 4 people on there said no onions. No other dietary restrictions other than no onions. But apparently that is just something that Adam cannot cook without. He does not know how to cook without onions. He's got to cook with onions because they flavor everything. In a way, to me, it seems like it's a little bit short-sighted and myopic to think that you have to have onions. So, for example, he talks about the holy trinity in Cajun cooking is garlic, onions, and bell peppers. Okay, the holy trinity is actually mirepoix from French, and their actual trinity is garlic, onions, and carrots instead of bell peppers. So why not just swap out the onions for carrots and make a bastardized mirepoix with garlic, carrots, and bell peppers? I mean, it doesn't seem like it's that difficult, right? And you've got a whole array of spices that you can use for on all of your food, and you have to use onions. It just seems like it actually seems a little lazy to me, to be honest with you, especially because they put it on their preference sheet. Like, it's one thing if they did not say anything on their preference sheet and they showed up to their charter and they were like, oh, by the way, we can't have onions. And then he's thinking, fuck, I've got to change my whole menu now, right? But this time, before they even got on the boat, they filled out a preference sheet, and on the preference sheet it said, no onions, right? So Adam decides to just ignore it and start making actual dishes with onions. So finally, at first, when they first got there, the snack had a big onion on it. And the people that could eat onions were eating it. But the people that couldn't, 3 of them managed to eat it. But the other one was like, I asked for no onions. They're like, that's not good. So then for dinner, the same thing happened. And finally, he was like, just send it back because I don't want onions. Like, okay, so here's kind of how I equate that. Like, I'm not a big fan of coconut. I'm not a big fan of mint. I'm not a big fan of bananas. I'm not a big fan of dark chocolate. Could I eat all 4 of those things? Sure, I could, But would I prefer not to? Yeah, kind of. And I like onions, but, I also know that living in a place where, if you cook onions, you're going to be smelling onions all week. And it's not always the most pleasant smell. I get that. Maybe some people don't like onions. I mean, like, it just kills me that he's not able to cook without onions. That's craziness. That's some bullshit right there, right? That's some cruise ship chef, right? Because they don't have a menu that fluctuates. They can just put out whatever they want in the buffet, and then you can just pick it up if you want, or you don't, So here's the thing. When Chef Ben on Below Deck and on last season of Below Deck Med, he was very temperamental and would always kind of get upset and, whatever. But then he would work through it and everyone would be fine. And he would never, ever give someone something that they specifically said they couldn't have on a preference sheet. I mean, yeah, mostly they don't like onions, but what if they had like a deadly allergy to onions? I mean, like, it just seems really irresponsible. And then he got into it with Hannah because the next day they were scheduled to go to these falls, the Kirka Falls, which they do look gorgeous. But the river is too narrow to allow yachts through, so they can only go up to a certain point, and then they've got to take a ferry to the falls. So the ferry leaves at 12:30. So she was like, I need the food out there in 10 minutes by 12:20, 10 minutes before. So he's like, okay. So, they get the food out there, and Hannah's off buying more liquor because they bought 20 bottles of vodka and they were already down to 14 by day 2. They like to drink. Good for them. God bless them. I couldn't. That is a lot for me. You know me. I literally like have 1 or 2 drinks a day. And when I say a drink, I mean like a wine cooler. Like, I'm not even talking like a hardcore mixed drink. I don't drink that much, right? I could never do 14 bottles. First of all, I wouldn't be able to stay awake for it because I'd be asleep. I mean, alcohol knocks me out. There's no way. I mean, even in all the time that it took for them to drink all those 14 bottles, I don't think I could have stayed awake for most of it, right? So God bless them. So Hannah and Wes were shopping, and in the meantime, um, Adam, no, the ferry. So the ferry that was supposed to take them to Kirka Falls, it got delayed until 1:30. So now Adam's all upset that his food is sitting out there in the sun, blah blah blah. Bugsy, can you put a blanket over it? And then he gets mad at Hannah when she gets back. I mean, we could all see, how is Hannah supposed to know that they canceled the ferry? She wasn't scheduled to do dinner service that time. That was actually supposed to just be Lauren until she freaked out, and then it became Lauren and Bugs. But Lauren's in charge. And then they canceled, they made the ferry late, and then all of a sudden Hannah's supposed to know about that and is supposed to, tell him to put the food in the fridge. I mean, he knows what time it is. Like, he knows why. I don't understand why he felt the need to be like, yeah, you should have told me. Maybe you're not the good chief stew. Maybe we should have Bugsy be chief stew. And she's like, well, maybe we need to have a chef that actually reads the fucking preference sheets. Snap. Yes. Yes. And then we saw some clips from next week, and apparently next week it does not bode well for Adam because, again, we see more plates coming back, and B, he mouths off to Hannah because he's got his back to her, and what does he say? He said something horrible, and resting bitch face. Oh, Kate, and I know, Kate, you probably dealt with this before. So when he says, well, maybe we can give them something that they actually ask for and they want, and they're like, or how about more resting bitch face or something like that. He said that to Hannah, and Captain Sandy was standing right next to Hannah, and she's like, oh, Adam. And she's like, that's grounds for termination. I'm like, yeah, maybe we will see Adam go home. And then maybe that'll make this whole love triangle a little less complicated for Malia. Fingers crossed. Excuse me. Anyways, thank you all for watching today. I do appreciate it. Please feel free to follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Angel Benton. You can hashtag Below Deck Med to talk Below Deck Med. And you can also hashtag Days to talk Days of Our Lives, because that's what I'm going to be doing next. All right, everyone. Peace out. Have a wonderful time. Have a great day. Wubba, wubba, wubba.